Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the Imperial Tactics channel, where we find new ways to purge the Xenos and Heretics from the tabletops of the 41st millennium. Today we're looking at the Impulsor, one of the new Primaris vehicles that has been much anticipated, as we're finally getting a transport that could actually function as a transport because it doesn't have a billion guns strapped to it that you have to pay for in points. Now the kit for the Impulsor isn't actually out at the moment at the time of recording this, but I'm certainly anticipating it will be soon. I'm sure there's plenty of people looking forward to picking some up themselves. In this video we're going to go through the stats of the Impulsor, its special rules, and its various different wargear options, and how it might fit into your army on the tabletop. So first things first, the Impulsor is a dedicated transport for Space Marines. It can also be fielded by Blood Angels, Space Wolves, and Dark Angels at the time of recording. Bare bones, armed with just 2 Storm Bolters, it costs 79 points, and it is essentially a flying transport tank with a move value of 14, weapon skill of 6, ballistic skill of 3+, strength and toughness of 7, 11 wounds, 3 attacks, leadership 8, and a 3-up save. When it reaches 5 wounds, it degrades, so its movement value is only 7, and then when it gets down to 2 wounds, the movement value drops to 4. At base, it is just equipped with 2 Storm Bolters, but there are quite a lot of other options that you can add to it, and a few different ways that you can build this tank. First of all, you have the option to switch out the Storm Bolters for 2 Fragstorm Grenade Launchers. This will add 4 points to the cost of the tank, making it 83 points. You can add an Iron Hail Effie Stubber as a pintle mounted weapon for another 6 points, and from there you can choose one of the options for the top hatch. You can either have an Iron Hail Sky Talon Array, a Bellicaster's Missile Array, or a Shield Dome. So what do all of those wargear options do? The Bellicaster's Missile Array, it can fire either normal crack or frag missiles with 48-inch range, or it can opt to fire Icarus missiles, which are a 48-inch range, heavy D3, strength 7, AP -1, damage 3. And this adds 1 to the result of the hit roll if it's targeting something that has the fly keyword, and it takes 1 away if it targets something without the fly keyword. This Bellicaster's Missile Array costs 17 points, so a little cheaper than a standard frag or crack missile launcher for some reason, despite having the additional option of firing Icarus missiles. The next option is the Iron Hail Sky Talon Array, heavy 6, strength 4, AP -1, damage 1. It has a similar rule of adding 1 to the hit roll if it targets a fly keyword model, and subtracting 1 from the hit roll if it is a non-fly keyword model that it targets. This is quite cheap at only 5 points for the 6 additional shots. It can take an Orbital Comms Array for 18 points. This can call down an Orbital Strike where you nominate a point on the battlefield, and every unit within d6 inches of the point, then you roll a 4-up, and if you roll a 4-up for that unit, then it suffers d3 mortal wounds. This can only be used once per battle. And the last option, also for 18 points, is the Shield Dome, which gives your Impulsor a 4-up invul save. It has a whole bunch of special rules. Angels of Death, so an extra attack on the charge for the Shock Assault, which is a bit laughable, Combat Doctrines, and Bolter Discipline, which might actually come into effect on those Storm Bolters. It has a Repulsor Field, which basically means that if you select an Impulsor as the target of a charge, then you subtract 2 from the charge roll. When it's destroyed, it might explode if you roll a 6 for the roll, and units within 6 inches of it suffer d6 mortal wounds. Note again that this is d6 mortal wounds, so it's a really nasty explosion if any of your stuff happens to be nearby. Hopefully it'll be the enemy stuff that is nearby and not yours. Obviously it is a transport. It can transport up to 6 Primaris infantry. It can't transport Gravis models or models with jump packs. So unfortunately no aggressors, suppressors, inceptors going in this transport. I was very disappointed when I learned that aggressors can't be transported in this, as because of its last special rule, it is the perfect delivery mechanism for getting short-ranged units in range. This assault vehicle special rule means that you can get your infantry out after the Impulsor has moved. So in your movement phase, you can move the Impulsor, which can be up to 14 inches, Disembark your infantry units, which means set them up within 3 inches of the base of the impulsor, and then you can move that unit and shoot with it normally. The only thing that this stops you from doing is charging, so you can't charge after you've had that crazy movement, which would be a bit silly really, as it could mean that you could be doing charges something like 40 inches away. This means that it actually does a very good job of getting intercessors or hellblasters where they need to go, whether that's onto an objective or into the face of the enemy to shoot some bolters at them. So, let's have a look at the different options that we discussed earlier and which ones I think are the best. I actually think that there really are a number of different viable builds for the Impulsor if you're looking to maximise its impact on the battlefield. To start with, you could just field it absolutely bare bones, 2 storm bolters, because that way it is very cheap at only 79 points. That's quite a lot of durability that you're buying for only that amount of points. Whenever you're getting vehicle wounds for around about 7 points per wound, that's quite good, and it does have some anti-infantry firepower that it can contribute with those very cheap storm bolters. The Iron Hail Heavy Stubber seems like a perfectly reasonable addition for only 6 points for 3 Strength 4 AP-1 shots. Particularly good if you're running Iron Hands for moving and shooting with heavy weapons, or Ultramarines for moving and shooting as if stationary. And now for the 4 top hatch arrays that you can put on it. Firstly, the missile launcher. I think that it's an interesting choice this. It actually means that the Impulsor can really contribute towards your firepower. I'd be particularly keen to put the missile launcher on it if you're running either Master Artisans or Salamanders, as it means that you can re-roll both the hit and wound of a single missile, meaning that that missile is very, very likely to do some damage. I think if you're just using it as a transport vehicle though, then the missile is probably best avoided, because it might be hitting on only 4-ups, and if the main function of your Impulsor is to transport units from A to B, it doesn't really want to be attracting any more attention from the enemy by putting a big gun on top of it that makes your opponent want to shoot it even more. Secondly, we have the Sky Talon Array. I think that at 5 points for a 6-shot gun, even if it is at -1 to hit ground targets, I think that it's a very good idea to put this on if you're not taking any other top hatch option. 5 points for 6 shots at AB-1 is just generally a very good deal, and unless you're really squeezed for points, I would try and include this. Unless, of course, your strategy with the tank is better suited by one of the other top hatch options. I think that the Orbital Comms Array is an interesting one. It really does have the potential for doing quite a few mortal wounds if you manage to roll high, maybe saving a command reroll for the d6 inches that the tank can do mortal wounds from the given point. It also will mess with your enemy's movement because they won't really want to castle around things very much, and a lot of Warhammer 40k is built upon big units hugging characters to get benefits from auras and other synergies. As you can only use the Orbital Comms Array once per turn and once per battle, I would probably just run one Impulsor with the Orbital Comms Array, if any, probably lurk it towards the back of your board so it can survive first turn to deliver its orbital strike and then go out harassing enemy units. And lastly, we have the Shield Dome, which basically skyrockets the Impulsor's durability through the roof. It's very good if you're transporting a high priority unit that needs to get to where it needs to be, or you really want to punish the enemy for choosing to shoot one Impulsor in particular. Say if that Impulsor is transporting a character and is likely to get shot before other similar Impulsors in your battle line. As a fun fact, it takes 9.5 las cannon hits to down an Impulsor with a shield dome, compared with only 6.5 to down a full wound Redemptor Dreadnought with 13 wounds. So it really does make them significantly harder to shift, and the enemy's only got so much anti-tank firepower. Just so you know, the Impulsor Shield Dome also applies in close combat, so it can protect you there as well. So now we've discussed the options, let's see how they will perform in different chapters. Iron Hands will be a very strong pick for the Impulsors, as it is for any vehicles, with moving and shooting heavy weapons, 6-up feel no pain, and not degrading as easily. It will be particularly good for the Missile and the Sky Talon Array, as they're both heavy weapons. Similarly, Ultramarines are very good for Impulsors, as when you're in the Tactical Doctrine, you can move and shoot as if you were stationary, so you'll get to fire those Storm Bolters at 24-inch rapid fire, as well as all the heavy weapons as if you sat still. Raven Guard aren't too bad, as it'll give the Impulsors a 2-up save when you're further than 12 inches away from them, due to them being in cover, and Salamanders isn't a bad idea if you're thinking about using the missile launcher for those sweet rerolls on the cracked missile. So how would I run Impulsors in my army? I think they can generally have different roles, and you can justify either competitively. Either you can use them as intended to transport infantry, or you can use them as a flying screen to protect your forces and dish out a little anti-infantry firepower. If I was using them as transports, I would probably put intercessors in them, either with assault bolt rifles or regular bolt rifles. I have seen a lot of people advising using Hellblasters, and I don't think this is bad, but I feel like Marines have generally got better options for dealing with hard targets than Hellblasters, even with Impulsors in the picture. Impulsors will be particularly good with the intercessors because it can throw them out onto an objective that's a very, very long way away while they dish out some anti-infantry firepower, and there's not that much in the Marine Codex that can move so fast and put objective secured units where they need to be. If I was using them like this, I would either run them bare bones with the Stormbolters, possibly with the Sky Talon or Iron Hail Stubber, and I'd think about upgrading with the Shield Dome too. I don't think that the Shield Dome is strictly necessary, but I think that it could be quite helpful and could cause big headaches with your opponents when they can't really kill any of your tanks with their dedicated anti-tank firepower. As I said, the second option is to use them as a flying screen, say if you have a lot of ground-based tanks or infantry that you don't want tying up by enemy charges. Their Repulsor Field that increases the distance an enemy needs to make a charge makes it very hard for them to pull off a charge out of deep strike, and it will just generally make it harder for enemy troops to assault into your lines. If I was running them this way, I would think about loading up on the anti-infantry firepower, such as the Stubber, the Iron Hail, Sky Talon Array, and possibly think about swapping out the Storm Bolters for the Fragstorm grenade launchers. One Impulsor loads up like that puts out 16 anti-infantry shots, which isn't really to be stiffed at, while costing just 94 points. A third and final way that I'd consider running them would be as a sort of stand-in for a main battle line tank. Deck them out with the missile launchers, give them the Master Artisan's trait and the Stealthy trait to give them a 2-up save out of 12-inch range and rerolls for the missiles, and load them up with Storm Bolters and the Iron Hail Heavy Stubber, and you'll put out a reasonable amount of damage per tank. They might lack the raw firepower of some other options in the Codex, but they're really quite tough for their points cost, and they have the advantages of the -2 to charge, making them harder to be caught in close combat, and even if they do get caught in close combat, they can just back out and keep on firing to full effect. In conclusion, I think that these are a potentially competitive unit. I'll be very interested to see what sort of builds make use of them in the future. In any case, I'm just very happy that Games Workshop have made us a very usable transport for Primaris Marines. If you think that I've missed anything at all, then feel free to comment down below. I'm sure there's several combos and ideas that I've missed, such as loading up librarians in the Impulsor to deliver a null zone straight into the heart of the enemy, or using them to go forward and play bumper cars with enemy tanks. If you'd like to hear more videos like this, please consider subscribing. I'll be uploading new Space Marine content as often as I can. This has been an Auspex Tactics review, and thank you very much for listening.